a mess around. We're going to lay down different colors at once. We're going to take a spray bottle. We're going to spritz like crazy. You're going to see me doing this. You watch me do it before you do it. You don't have to follow along. Just watch me. And I'm going to pick it up and move it around, and then you let it go bone dry. Now, think of it as a color abstract painting. But when you lay down your colors and spray, you want to make sure, especially the blues, but basically you want yours maybe up to mid value, down to light, and even some of the white of the paper you might save. So when you're done with this mess around, all the colors cannot go beyond mid value. Why? I'm going to show you that. So this is a mess around. Think of it as an abstract painting. Don't think about where highlights may have to go. You just lay down these colors as a mess around. Now, you've got all of yours traced. This is not one of, obviously, this is a different subject. But you've got it traced, and we're going to do the mess around on top. Now, notice, I'm not worrying about any highlights in the face. But also notice that all of these colors do not go beyond a mid value. So you've got the white of the paper. You can lay down your paint really light. That would be, let's say, a light value. You can lay down a slightly darker value, a slightly darker value. But you can't lay it down super saturated, except for the opera and the yellow. You can really lay that down and really make it bright and really super saturated, because it doesn't go beyond mid value anyway. But you got to be very careful with like the phthalo blue, that's on my list, or the cobalt or ultramarine blues. You got to worry about that. And if you do mix a green, like you lay down some yellow and you lay down some phthalo blue, and they're mixing into green, but they're still really dark, you got to keep spraying it. You're going to see me do this. So it does not go beyond mid value. Are there any questions about this idea of not going beyond mid value?
Could you repeat the colors not to use? I think one was the
It's
blue.
It's going to be mostly all the blues. You're going to have to spray those and let them run so that they're just mid value. You're going to see me do this. A picture's worth 1,000, a demonstration's worth 1,000 words. I'm going to put this aside. Now, here's a good example. I took a photograph. Here's a mess around. I got some blues here. They don't go beyond mid value. I got some pretty bright yellow here. It's kind of a green. That's fine. That's not good. None of this is going beyond mid value, except maybe this here. But I've done so many mess arounds that I don't worry about this. But I don't want you to have any color that gets this dark. Does anybody know who that is? Can you tell from the thing?
Abe Lincoln.
It's Abe Lincoln. I'm a big Abe Lincoln fan. And I taught in his hometown about 2 years ago, Springfield, Illinois. So watch this. So then I can take the mid to darker values, a few light values, but mostly darker values, and I can start painting his features, his hair, his bow tie, his coat, and he emerges from this mess around like this. How about that? So all this color in his face is this color, these mid value. And then the darker values bring out the texture in his hair, his features, his coat, his bow tie, the darkness underneath his beard in the neck area. However, I cheated a little because I did want to get some highlights. How did I do that? Well, you saw on your materials list, chalk markers. I used a white chalk marker. We're going to play with that. You're going to see me demonstrate that. And you can also buy lots and lots of colored chalk markers. Let's not get into it right now. So we're using some different things that you probably haven't used a lot that I'm using more and more, which are chalk markers and a spritzer and doing the mess around. I'm going to put these aside. Here's another example. Look at that bright yellow. You can get as yellow as you want. That does not go beyond mid value. It's not dark at all. Look at the orange and the reds. They're just not that dark. So this is all mid value. I allowed for some paint to run because after all, we're going to be lifting it. Now you can do it with a brush. Hey, have plenty of paper towels handy because as you lift, it's going to drip on your tabletop. And at some point you want to just get all of that off with a paper towel. So have that handy. But the dark values in the eye, the eyebrow, the eye here, the nostril, around the nose, the beard, goatee, the lips, a little bit of the hair here, a little bit of the hair here, some darkness in the collar, underneath the neck. That came second after the mess around was toned. That came second. These little white areas, this white area here, that just happened by accident. Now, if I did want a nice strong highlight on the bridge of the nose, which I didn't, I felt this was enough. But if I wanted a highlight, I would come back with you know what. Something like a white chalk marker. And I would put white on there. By the way, these chalk markers are filled with a gouache-like substance. So if you start using these with your watercolors after this workshop, you could also do pets. You could do birds, dogs, cats, whatever. It's going to be able to get into any show because it's not a different medium. It's not an opaque medium. If you want to enter a show in a watercolor society, this is just fine. This little boy is a cutie. But check out, I don't know. I mean, I got these two front teeth almost glowing. Look how it's blending with the tooth underneath. And okay, the locks of his hair. Look at the glow. I love the glow effect. The glow up here. That's where chalk markers come in handy. Now, what I want to do is, and let me show you the little girl. You've seen this one in some advertising that I've done. So look at all these colors. That comes from my mess around. And also, it's different. What's that doing there? It's got she's still a cute little girl, but there's a certain amount of painterly roughness. It looks like it's hand done. It's not photographic. It's fun. I think it picks up the exuberance of children. Even with some of the splatters that I put on. So that's why I like this mess around style. And it's a great way to handle color. People get all uptight with color. Well, with this, you just kind of do these mess arounds and you've got the colors built in. Here's another one I did. I've done some Zoom, actually back-to-back Zoom demonstrations. That's why I have so many of these. Here's another one. Look at the difference you can do. It just depends on the mess around. I wouldn't settle on one. You could line up about 5 of these mess arounds, and when they're dry, do 5 paintings, 5 studies of the subject, and pick your favorite one. You know, for some people, this may be, her face looks a little too dirty. It's too much for me. Where this one, oh yeah, that's softer, that's nicer, that's more feminine looking. I like this one. I'm standing up. I've got out of my chair. I like to stand up. Gives me nice arm action. And you look at things too much sideways and it just, at least for me, it distorts. So I like to stand up and be right over my painting. So here we go. I want to have my spritzer handy. I'm going to put it right there. Oh man, I got to have lots of paper towels handy. Paper towels. Okay. And you've got to be prepared to do this relatively quickly. You can't, when you lay down the paint, you can't let it dry, because we want to mix all of these colors together with the spritzer. And once they dry, you know, they're going to attach a puddle of color that's, if it is allowed to dry, it's going to attach itself to the fiber and you're stuck. So you'll see. Okay.
David,
Yeah.
Cynthia asked whether your table is tilted.
Oh no, you can tilt your table. The late great Charles Reed always painted on a tilted table, but I'm used to a flat table. But you're going to certainly see me tilt the paper. You're going to see a lot of that. See what's going to happen. It's all very wet right now. Okay. Here's the scary, but once you've done this several times, you got the experience underneath your belt. It's the fun. It's very loose. The only thing you're controlling is you're keeping everything. Look at this. Look at this. Wow. Okay. I'm going to leave a little of the white of the paper. I'm probably going to leave some runs, like here and here. I want it nice, and I'm going to try and keep it bright. And this looks pretty bright. I'm liking this so far. So I'm going to hold this up flat like I'm delivering some pizza, so I can clean my table as much as I can. It's dripping like crazy. Look, it's on my arm. It's everywhere. I like that. It's got a nice bright feeling to it. I think I'm going to leave it just like that. Okay, I'm setting up my table. So now I'm not going to pull back the camera. This is going to go out of the camera, but it's always in my sight, because as I'm painting, even though we've got the pencil tracing, I've seen people, they will paint what they know and not what they see. For instance, her nostrils, they're almost elliptical. You don't see that much nostril. They're almost like a sideways teardrop. That's what you want to paint. You don't want to do little circles. You know, that's kind of what we know. We discovered that when we were in grade school. Oh, that's how you do a nose. You just put in some round circles for the nostrils. No, you don't. And we're going to have to be very careful with the mouth and the teeth, but you're going to have this on the recording as I paint. So I'm putting this on the side. It's going to be out of view. You'll see a little bit of it, but don't worry about that. And I'm going to start painting. Now, I'm using primarily any color where I can go from light to dark. I could use multiple colors, but for this workshop, we want to keep it simple. We're going to emerge the subject by using just one, maybe at the most two colors. It's almost going to be monochromatic. You'll see. So the colors I'm going to pick, I'm going to pick phthalo blue, one of my favorite colors. And I'm going to do a puddle. It's a nice thick puddle. Phthalo blue. In fact, I don't want to waste paint. I'm going to start the eyes right now. I'm going to go right over the highlights because I'll put those back later with chalk marker. Now I'm working on the upper eyelids, and they're pretty dark where the eyelid is going above her eyeball, her pupil and the whites of the eye. So I'm still going to use this dark color. Let's go from light to dark on the hair while the eyes are drying. Go back to phthalo. This is going to be pretty light. Okay, she's got light eyebrows. So that's no big deal. There's a little bit of shading here, a little bit of cast shadow here. I can do it both ways. So now the nostrils. Okay. I will go into the open mouth and work around the teeth. Basically, as an artist, you have to teach yourself to see areas of light to middle to dark values and paint those. Okay. Let's get her chin a little more into shade, because the neck is always shaded. Remember, most of the time we're being lit from above, whether it's inside or outside with the sun. So the head is protecting the neck from getting real strong highlights. Ear. Look, the ear canal, the ear lobe. That's definitely darks against lights. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I've trained my eye to look at, are value shapes. And as artists, we're basic. That's all we're painting. You don't even have to think about what the subject is. Yeah, she's a cute little girl, but you know what? Like an inanimate object, like a mountain, like a tree, like a donkey, whatever. We're painting value shapes. Here's her ear canal. And there's an ear. Now I added this. This is not in the photograph. Her hair stops here. I wanted some hair down here to frame the face. So I'm going to do the nostrils. Now we've got a little bit of, I've been painting portraits for years. I paint all sorts of subjects, but I've been painting portraits for years and years. So, it's a familiar subject for me. So, if you're struggling a little, if you've never done portraits, give yourself a break. It just takes a while to get used to it and to see how heads are structured. Okay, now it's time to take out the bigger brush and go back to the hair. Yeah, so even though this is the first wash and it's light, now you see, if you're going to go from light to dark like this, it's pretty easy with one color. But if there were some other colors in her hair, if her hair was dyed and some parts of it were red, she has black and her mother has taken her to a beauty salon and done some red hair, then you could not put blue over everything. You would have to do blue and then stop and maybe do some red lightly and then go over it again. But this is going to be real easy because her hair is just flat out one color. Now, I'm looking at the dark spots. Highlights here, highlight here, but look, darks, a little bit of darks here, definitely darks on the other side. So that's what I want to get. So here we go. I'm dipping right into the, well, you can see I'm dipping right into the well and getting on some pretty thick paint. Now here I'm working around her hairband. I'm leaving a few highlights. They're subtle, but they're there. I'm not covering every square inch. So the beautiful thing is you'll have this video to start and stop, and you'll see how I paint. And you can follow along.
How long do we get to keep the video?
Oh, Judy, that's your...
You're going to just keep it on your computer. I'll send a link so from Zoom you can download it to your computer and watch it at your pleasure.
And it's downloaded and it never goes away, right?
Yes.
Great,
There you
thank
go.
you.
Can't beat
Yeah,
that.
David is very generous to let us have a recording for this.
Sometimes you have to tap these to get the ink going. Now, those are a little too big for the likes of me, so I'm going to pull some of it off or just soften it a little. You see how deep the crease is in terms of value? There. This eye has to be a little bit larger and down a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to do same thing here. And again, I want to get the hair curling. And I don't want it to be just a black dark area, because that never works. So we've got a combination of two things. We've got the mess around, and then when you get to emerging the head, you know, you want to really have your reference photograph with you and look at the dark, well, the light to dark values. Dark eyes, dark part of the upper lid. But the crease, not necessarily so dark. I kind of let it go dark because I think it works. But if I didn't want to, I would take a wet brush and lighten this up as it comes towards the outside. Like that. This one, I would push this a little further out. There, I'm happy with that. Okay, now I want to do the mouth. I'm taking opera. There. And I want to warm it up in places. So I'm going to take yellow and I'm going to go to the corner of this puddle and add some yellow. So that warms it up. So I've got a cool red and I've got a warm red I can work with. So let me start with the cool red. I'll make sure my hand's not going to, oh,
I'm,
That's
I'm sorry, what reds are you using?
look at that. Oh, I'm using opera and yellow. When I mix a little, let's do it again. When I mix a little yellow into the opera, it almost kind of gives it more of a cad red look. Look. No, I'm going to have to add more opera to that. See how that's a nice, it's like a fire engine red.
Got it. Thank you.
See? And then the pure opera. So I can go back and forth. So I want to start out with the fire engine red because on the lips, this lower lip has got a little bit of a highlight on it. It's a little bit lighter. And then the gums are a little bit darker. I'm not going to get stuck in too much detail, but I think these two colors are going to work. So here we go. There's the upper lip. And then, now the lower lip, really dark here as the lip rolls into the mouth and against the teeth. In fact, I'm going to add just a little bit of phthalo blue. There. And then I'm going back to phthalo blue because I want to get, now I'm going to deepen the inside of the mouth. Okay. I think her tooth is a little too big back here, so I'm going to make that smaller. Now I'm going to use the opera. And then darken the shadow here.
Maybe can you explain how to paint teeth so they look more natural? I mean, that's the hard part, I think.
Yeah, that's the challenging part. I'm gonna have to let this dry a little more. You can't think of them. You can think. Don't try and paint them as separate teeth. Again, it's like hair. With hair, you don't see strands of hair unless you walk up close to somebody. It's the same with teeth. You don't see separate teeth. You see a strip of white. And by the way, the teeth are arching, and on the left side and the right side, they're arching deeper into the mouth. So this tooth and these teeth are way too light right now, but I gotta wait for all of this to dry before I can go in there and make them darker. So I'm waiting for that. I could either leave the background the way it is, or I can work on that a little bit. So I'm going to go in. I want to get some nice bright color going on in my painting. I'm seeing a little of the yellow bleed into the cheek there, which is good. There's a nice bright yellow highlight on her top. I like that. You know, as I'm painting, I'm just making color decisions as I go along.
So did you just use blue to push the teeth back?
It was, yes, it was the lavender mixture right here. Let's get this palette a little bit closer.
So is that phthalo and opera?
You got it.
Okay. So you don't use ultramarine much?
No, but that doesn't mean that you can't. No, sometimes I'll tell you another thing that I do that's counterintuitive to watercolor is like I did here. That was, in fact, I wish it were a little bit thicker. Like that. I use the watercolor paint really, really thick, so it's almost opaque for some highlights, for some bright color accents. Or
Was
I
that
love
white?
no, that's just a yellow,
Okay.
but it's so thick you can't, it's opaque now. Or let me get a little more. Look at that. This is a turquoise color.
Fun.
But really, really thick. Like that. Just little color accents. I either do it with very thick, years ago, I did it with very thick paint until I ran into chalk markers. Now I use a lot of color accents with the chalk markers. Let's get a look at the highlight she's got on the nose. Let's do that. Yeah.
David, Cynthia is asking whether
What?
you do live drawing, like
Wait,
draw live.
hold on. Now that's a little too much. So while it's still wet, I don't want a big brush. I want my small brush, and then I'll answer that question. This is gouache. You can move it around just like watercolor. And that's going to dry back. It's not going to quite be as flashy as it is now once it's dry. I'll take a little more off. That was a little too much. But you can always work on it. It's just like watercolor. In fact, let me get my reference photograph. And I'll let that dry back. So what was the question? Cynthia had a question?
Yeah, do you always work from picture or sometimes a live setting? How do you draw live? Graph question mark.
Well, I taught drawing for about 17 years at City College, where, yeah, we did figures or portraits. We worked from scratch. But I'm into the drawing, the painting process and the creative colors and playing around with things like chalk markers and spritzers. So I kind of paint like I draw. You see, with a quick brush movement. But I don't want to waste time drawing. That does take some time. And also, I do multiple studies of the same subject. So I've got that tracing. You know, if a painting goes bad, or you know, I've got one study where it's mostly cool colors. I want another a study where it's a balance of cool and warm. And I'm painting. I'm painting in a different way as far as brush strokes and the types of brushes. You know, I'm making different paintings of the same subject. You know, I call them studies. I don't want to have to draw every time. That's a waste. Who said like Caravaggio? You know, they use camera obscura. Well, I use tracing paper and a photo print, and I've got that master tracing, so I can trace on like 8 pages of paper and do a different painting on each one. Now I got orange. Let's do it's not a beret. It's what is that? What is this that she's got on?
Looks like a headband.
A headband. Yeah, that's all it is. With just a little bit showing up out of her thick hair. There, we've got a band now, a nice orange band. And the nice thing about chalk markers, they're gouache, and the gouache is very thick and opaque. I think what I'll do is let's I don't want to get it. I don't want to get her. Oh, I know. I want to get some whites in her eyes. Look, here the white of her eyes are in shade, but here we got a pop of reflection. Here the white of her eye is in shade, but here a little more white. So I'm going to go in there like that. And then I'm going to take a brush and soften it a little. Put a little there, a little bit there. Okay, that kind of makes the eyes a bit more dramatic. I'm also a splatter and get some more of this lavender. So whatever I can do to give the painting some extra energy, you got to be careful with this though. You can't overdo things. And I want some more. A little shading on her collar. And a little bit of shading here on her shoulder. Okay.
Thank you.
It was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was fabulous. Wonderful.
Excellent. Excellent. Great.
Lots of
Thank
fun
you,
and very
David.
challenging.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Goodbye, everybody. I'll see you next
you.
Wednesday.